There's somebody in your workplace, you know the quality of their work. You know that they're nowhere near as good as you, but they're always getting recognized, they're always getting promoted. Why is that? It's because they have a personal brand and you don't. So, what can you do about that? How can you start developing your personal brand? And why is it really so important? Let's get into it today. Elena, at what point in your career did you start thinking, yeah, I need to think about my personal brand? And what do you think is a personal brand?
Yeah. Well, probably let's do the second question first. I think a personal brand is about how you present yourself, how you promote yourself, and how you get yourself known by other people. And I
Yeah.
think for me, at the beginning of my career, it was probably something I did more. I probably wasn't aware that I was doing it as much as the need to do it now. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. Um, One is around externally in the change of social media, but also I feel the way in which we now work, given that we've had COVID and that everybody's remote, that's really changed the way in which we socialise and how we can promote our own visibility and develop relationships. And at the beginning of my career, everybody was in the office having meetings. You went to other organisations' offices to have meetings. It was easier to promote yourself within your own network because you were doing it on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
And at that point, I loved to talk and loved to go meet people and discuss everything that was happening within the community and within the environment. But well, not but as times have changed and we've moved to more digital platforms, the way in which these things are done are very different. What about yourself, Anna? Do you think that resonates with you?
It does resonate with me, and it reminds me of all the things that I wasn't doing earlier on in my career. It's only sort of later, I would say from the mid part of my career, that I started to understand the importance of personal branding. I had this guy who he and I used to goof off really in the early stages of my career. And the difference between he and I is that we'd goof off, but then I'd actually go away and do the work, but he wouldn't have the work done. But he was Mr. Popular. He was, oh, everyone's so impressed with his work, kind of thing. And why? Because he was talking to the right people. So early on in my career, I thought that it was just about do your work, do it well, and let my immediate line manager know that I was doing well. But that is so not enough to have a successful career, and it's about, you have to think, what do I want my career to be? And if you want it to be at a certain level, then you have to make those connections. You have to get used to it. Unfortunately, I wasn't like you, Alina. I struggled with talking outside of my immediate remit regarding my work. So it was about discussions about the work, but anything else peripheral, I struggled with that. And when we were all back in the office, I wasn't the lunch girl. I wasn't going to lunch with people. I wasn't getting coffees with people because the type of introvert I am, I get tired of the conversation
Yeah.
and I'm done, kind of thing. But I needed to push myself beyond that. I needed to push myself beyond that to make those connections. So now that we have the digital platform, it's a little bit easier actually, because I can join a coffee session, an online coffee session, to have those discussions. I can initiate a game, and I feel better when I have control of whatever the social activity is, to try and get to know my colleagues a bit better. So bringing it back, I love your definition of what a personal brand is. I think that captures it properly. Break that down a bit more. So, with that definition, what can you do to then build up your personal brand?
So, in order to break that down, I think there's probably two things that we should look at. One is the need to I guess, assert your personal brand internally within the organisation you're working for. And this one is to also do that externally. And I think
Yeah.
different skills and different tools and different methodologies are needed for both. And also, obviously, there's a different rationale for why you would want to do that in a internal and external aspect. I'm sure there's a better technology for that, but still. So internally, we're talking about within your organisation, how best to do that. So I think it's thinking about how you want to be perceived and how you want to come across. It's about having, for me, having that say alter ego image, but having a clear idea of how I want to be perceived, which is
Yeah.
someone who knows what they're talking about, someone who's confident. I'm a big promoter in leadership and the development of people's own skills. So for me, I want my team to know that I'm prepared to help them to get to where they want to go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's looking at all of those different aspects and thinking, well, how can people perceive me as being, that person having those traits and those skills? Um, and so it's making sure that I talk to the right people, um, talking to as many people as possible so that everybody knows who I am and what I'm here to do. Um, for me, it's also about physical perception. So if I'm perceived, and I think we've had this conversation before, I have to be comfortable in my own skin. So when I go into
Yeah.
the office, I am in formal attire, even though my current location is very laid back. You won't find me in jeans and trainers, really, unless it's the weekend. So I want to come across as being my own definition of what professional in professional attire is.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also stepping outside of your comfort zone and talking to those people who aren't necessarily in your immediate circle or area. So talking to um, managers and other sorts of resources and colleagues who you wouldn't necessarily or who you don't actually need to talk to for any particular reason. They're not within your project sphere, because
Mm-hmm.
you never know when they will be. And also it's looking at what power and influence that they do have. Um, there's a lot to be said for networking, regardless. And so it's always good to develop your networks, both internally and for the future as well. I feel like that
Yeah.
doesn't quite answer your question, Anna, but I feel, it's still an
No,
important
it
point.
does, and it gets into the meat of things. So from what you've said, the first thing I got out of that was you got to be purposeful. We throw out a lot of words about be mindful, but that's the reality of it. You've got to be purposeful and mindful of how do you want to be seen. That's the start of crafting your personal brand. How do you want to be seen? So that is tip number one. Be mindful and understand how do you want to be seen. Then you talked about stakeholders. Then it's understanding internally who do you need to be seen by. It's not just your line manager, it's not just your immediate team. Who else needs to see and know how awesome and fabulous you are? Who else needs to know that? How do you get into their circles? I have a thing at the moment where I need to get to some pretty senior people, and I'm thinking about how do I get to them to make sure that I can deliver successfully. And this one is more on the side of successful program delivery, but also it won't hurt my personal brand to make sure that I'm in front of these people, and then being comfortable in yourself so that you can present yourself the way you want to present yourself, because all companies have their sort of way that they dress. Gosh, I remember in the old days starting a job and the HR taking me through, oh, this is the kind of dress that this is how we dress here, blah blah, and actually telling me, yes, what you've got on now is fine. I think if they did that now, they'd probably get into trouble. Um, unless it was one of those really, really traditional places where nobody ever speaks up about anything. But the point is that now you've got more freedom to be yourself. So even if you're in a more casual place or a more formal place and that doesn't suit you, as long as you're showing up at with yourself and you're comfortable, that being comfortable with yourself, it puts everybody else at ease, doesn't it, Alina?
It
It puts
definitely
everybody
does.
else at ease,
Yeah.
and you're able to get that communication going a bit better, So for someone who has never thought of their personal brand, and let's still stay focused on where you're working at the moment, because there's the whole other side of externally as well, isn't there? So
Yeah.
let's stay focused at the moment at where you're working at the moment. We know you need to be purposeful. We know you need to make those connections outside of your team. We know you want to try and be as comfortable as you can with yourself. What are one or two practical things you can say to somebody? Okay, you're starting this afresh. This is a new concept for you. Do these two things.
Introduce yourself. It doesn't matter whether the person needs to know who you are or not. Introduce
Yeah,
yourself, tell them who you are and what you're there to do, and find out what they're there to do, because part of everything we do is in projects and programs is about listening and having those active listening skills. So don't just talk about yourself, find out about other people and what they do, and how you can work together, or liaise or collaborate together in the future. Not
yeah,
necessarily, it doesn't necessarily need to be, core work stuff. There might be groups, communities, etc., that your organisation has.
yeah,
But one of the first things I would say would be to introduce yourself to anybody and everybody. And by saying that, it's not necessarily about coming into a new organisation and introducing yourself. If there's that person who, when you are in the office, you do keep seeing by the coffee pot or whatever, introduce yourself. It's never, ever too late to start doing that.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point, because sometimes you might say, oh, I need to focus on all the senior people. No, everybody, everybody, because you just don't know the impact that it will have. So
Yeah,
you want to make sure that, quite frankly, don't be one of those people that is bitchy to junior people and all smiley with senior people. That's so
yeah.
disingenuous, and it will bite you in the butt, basically. So um, be be real with everybody on every level. For me, I would say stretch yourself, stretch
Mm,
yourself, stretch yourself. And I'm talking from my experience as somebody, as I said before, I struggle with social things in work. So I have to stretch myself. So when there's that thing of, oh, who wants to be part of the organizing committee for XYZ? Stretch yourself. At least say to yourself, once a year, I'm going to be part of something else, something social. I'm going to stretch myself to be part of the organizing committee for this. I'm going to be the one that organizes the icebreaker, because obviously you're then forced to talk to lots of different people, and they are going to know who you are. So when those occasions come up, those opportunities come up, stretch yourself, put your hand up and get involved.
yeah. I would just add to that, in terms of getting outside of your comfort zone. So the people who seem to get ahead and have really good personal brands, like you said, are those people who are very vocal and talk to everybody. And I think part of that is they're not thinking about, oh, I am just a project manager, I am just a program manager, I am just a. They're thinking big. They're thinking, I am just going to be the next CEO. I am just
Mm-hmm.
going to be the next. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore, they're thinking about what they want to do, how they want to get ahead, and they're putting themselves in that position now. It doesn't matter if they're only in that position in their head.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but they're going out and talking to the right people as if they are in, you know, that place where they want to be in the future. That's one of the things I've really noticed. And you do find that those people are the ones that get ahead. They're
Yeah,
reaching out to the right
exactly.
people, they're talking the right talk, putting themselves mentally in that position.
Yeah, exactly. It's about, you know, be a bit audacious, right? Because not
Good
only are
word.
you putting yourself in that circle, you're also learning as well, because because sometimes you find that really senior people join whatever committee is going on, and you're there and you're seeing how they operate, and you're learning how they speak, how they negotiate, how they get things done. It's learning
Yeah.
as well for you. So there is no down there's no disbenefit for you putting yourself forward. So how do you do this externally now? So you're now bringing yourself up internally. People are getting to know you or whatnot, but you're not gonna, especially in this day and age, you're not gonna be at that same company forever. So you need to also be building your personal brand externally. And to me, this is where LinkedIn is very good for that. So, Alina, what would you do on LinkedIn to try and
So
build your
as you were
brand?
saying, so you said on LinkedIn, I was just going to say, times have changed. And yeah, building your personal brand externally and the way in which it's done is completely different. And I am not the biggest social media fan, LinkedIn, etc. That's one of my weaker points. Back in the day, show my age, I used to be at all the events that I needed to go to within my industry, and again, that was an industry I loved, but it was also a very niche industry, so it's easier to go to those networking events, go to those industry events, meet people, be known, good old days of business cards, sharing those around. But like you say, we now need to do that. We do still need to do that, getting out to networking events and meeting people from different companies within your same industry, if it's an industry you want to stay in, or
Yeah.
within your profession is still important and something that we need to get back into the habit of doing, everybody physically.
Yeah.
But virtually within LinkedIn, you do need to do all the things that I hate to do. So you do need to make sure that your profile looks good, is up to date, has all the right keywords and elements on there. And then you do need to join as a chat within what it is that you're interested in. So join all of the other project management, program management groups on LinkedIn. And it's not just a case of joining them, is it? It's a case of actually participating in the conversations that they're having, commenting, reaching out to those networks and to people and looking at what you've got in common and starting those conversations. Now, Anna, you're a lot better at this than I am. So what would you suggest?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm a lot better
And
at it than you.
you enjoy it as well.
Oh, well, that's the lie. I force myself. I stretch myself. I don't enjoy it. I, I don't enjoy it. So sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised at how enjoyable the conversation was, but unfortunately, I'm always dreading it going in. I'm always dreading it going in. This is, I suppose, how my introversion presents itself. I'm always dreading it going in, and sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised, and sometimes I come out of it being very exhausted and needing lots of silent time afterwards. But I would say that, yeah, doing all those things is important, and there's so many groups on LinkedIn, but this is why we have launched the collective. This is why we have launched Black Women in Projects Collective, so that all of us Black women that work in projects, whether we're BAs, PMs, PMO, data analysts, agile coaches, whatever it is that we are, we can come together, have discussions that are completely through our lens and how we experience the world, and support each other and help each other. This is why the collective has come into existence. So if you'd like to find out more, make sure you click the link in the description, which will tell you more information, and you can join the waiting list. So as Alina said, it's about making sure your profile is good on LinkedIn. It's about posting every now and again and commenting. So I have this theory that I have, that you should always be at 50%. And regardless of whether you're looking for a job or whatever, be doing things at 50%, which to me means you're commenting on relevant posts, things that interest you. And then maybe once a month, every couple of months, you make a post yourself. That keeps you bubbling alive in the virtual world. If you're now in full-on job search mode or launching a project of yourself, you're kicking that up a notch. You're taking it up the percentages to 100%. To me, 100% means that you're posting every week, you're commenting a couple of times a day on other people's posts, and definitely you're getting known. And then, Elena, this is where you're really good, keeping in touch with past colleagues. Yeah, you're really good at that. Keeping in touch with past colleagues. Take it away, Lena, the one who's actually good at it.
I do believe it's important to keep up with people you've worked with in the past, just to see how they are getting on a personal level, but also just to see what they're doing in their careers, because you don't know, especially I think in our career, and especially if you work in a certain particular industry, people tend to get recycled a lot. They go from one organisation to another organisation. For me, the reasons are also a bit selfish. I like to work with people who I know who can deliver. And I've worked with a lot of good people. So again, if I'm looking for someone new or I need to form a team, it's important to know who's out there, what they're doing, how they developed, what skills they've got now. Because obviously, been in this game for a while. So, even some of my graduates are now program managing. They've worked their way up. So it's important to see how people have developed, what skills they've got, what industry they've got, and how you can help each other out as well. The same way how people may be looking for jobs in the future, you might also be in that position and need to look for something. Also about skills and knowledge. As you work going into a different area, looking at new technology, new skills, it could be that someone you've worked with in the past has developed in their capability in that area, and you can ask them for advice or guidance as well. So keep in contact.
So I hope you're getting something for this so far about why a personal brand is important and why you should be building your personal brand right now. So make sure you click like and subscribe so that you can continue to follow us to learn more about how you can do these things that will help you build your career. And make sure you comment about what have you been doing? Is there anything else you've been doing that is helping you build your personal brand? Especially if you've seen somebody doing something really well and you thought, I should be doing that. Comment and share the knowledge. Let's all learn how we can take our careers to the next level. I think, Elena, is there any last words you want to give the ladies about what they should be doing with their personal brand and why it's something they shouldn't ignore?
I think it's that last bit, why they shouldn't ignore. As we've both mentioned, there are certain elements of increasing our visibility and personal brand that we don't like. We've said before, growing is sometimes uncomfortable. So, even if it's just 10 minutes a week, do something. We often say, eat the frog, but for that one thing a day, one thing a week, one thing a month, just do it. Do something that will help you. We know it's uncomfortable, but for it, you will grow and you will benefit.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that we're doing inside the collective is holding each other accountable. So if you're saying that you want to post once a month or once a week or whatever, and you're looking for an accountability partner, you can find that within the collective. So we've talked to you about how you can build your personal brand internally and externally. And we really hope that you ladies go out there, start building. We need more of us in higher powers of authority so we can keep bringing more and more of us, bringing access and options for us. So please go forth and slay.